It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to the Phil Ferguson Show. I am so delighted that you are here. I appreciate it very much. A couple of different fun things in the show today. Of course, we will have an interview later on. The topic is The Bible Says What? So we're going to have some fun with that, so hang on, of course, for that. Before we get to that, we're going to have a couple of investing skeptically little segments. One is how to get started. It's all about the people that don't have a whole lot of money. Sometimes I get carried away with the really fancy and elaborate things and estate planning and all the fun stuff one can do when you have a couple of $1 million. But not everybody has that, especially if you're younger and you're getting your first job and you have debts to pay. So in this segment, I have some things about how to get started. What can you do if you have no dollars or $5 or $1,000? That kind of thing. I think you'll like it. The other segment for investing skeptically today is about that plan that you had with your former employer. Usually a 401k, but there are many different types. And my recommendation, really short here, is you should roll it over to an IRA. See, that was easy. Just do that. But I go through a lot of the logic and rationale that support my suggestion of moving to an IRA and why you should do that and what the possible downsides and or problems are if you leave it behind. So the short thing, if you left the job, move the money. I don't think I even said it in the segment. I think my record so far is I had a husband and wife couple hire me. They both worked in IT and kept switching jobs a lot, every 3 to 5 years. And they were getting closer to retirement. And we found 12 old 401k or 401k-like accounts with former employers. And the sad thing is then it becomes a lot of work. And I remember one client saying, well, Phil, this is a lot of work. Do we have to do this now? So, well, the work's not going to get any easier. So if you're getting in your 60s or 70s and it seems like a whole lot of work to find all these accounts, it's not going to get easier, my friend. And this is the way shit works sometimes. It's not going to get easier. So move those old 401ks, 403bs, TSP, thrift savings plan, if you have one of those. Roll those over when it's convenient. Hopefully after you find a new job, maybe. But if you're still looking, you can still move it. It's usually going to be 15 to 60 minutes of work. So find some time to move your old 401k or similar type of an account. So we have that going on. I'm recording this right after the U.S. Senate failed to pass a voting rights bill, which defies my understanding. I am so frustrated with politics. Thankfully, I can watch it a little bit less than I was before because it can really drag you down. So limit your exposure because it doesn't generally move that fast. And now that we don't have the one who shall not be named hurricane per day ex-president, I feel better. But there's still people that support him, so I just can't wrap my head around that. So politics doesn't change. I think I mentioned I refinanced the house, so that was cool. A few weeks ago, I refinanced the cars. Something you should consider and keep it in mind, particularly with a house. If you just bought it a year or two ago and you refinance for a new 30-year loan, assuming you had a 30-year loan before, keep in mind that with the lower interest rate, not only might your payment go down, as one would expect, but the amount of money that you're paying every month, a larger amount of that goes towards the principal of the loan. It's not just interest payments, because imagine a home loan with 0% interest, 100% of what you pay would go to paying down the principal. So the lower the interest rate, even if you might say, oh, I'll only save $100 a month and it cost me $2,000 to refinance. And so it would take 20 months. May not be worth it for you. But if you include the additional principal that you're paying, which might be another $100 a month, and now it's $200 a month. So in 10 months, you're break even. And after that, you're creating more personal wealth. It's just another one of those little things that I like to do, to think about, how can I squeak out some more money here? How can I create some more money there? How can I have more efficient investments to make slightly more return in the long run? Can I do rebalancing? Can I do dollar cost averaging? Can I do whatever I have to do to try to make a little bit more money? Because if you make a little bit more money year after year after year after year, you invest wisely, you invest smartly, the system that I use, methods that I recommend, you will, if you deposit enough money, become rich. Which also just jumped into my head, reminds me, one of the questions I had about 401ks, which prompted the 401k segment that's coming up. But this was not in it because I forgot to put it in the fucking segment, but here it is anyway. The question often comes with a 401k that you currently have. Should I put the money in over 12 months or right away? Excellent question. And it ties into the dollar cost averaging thought that I just had a minute ago. First of all, if you don't have the ability to put 100% of the money in your 401k in the first couple of months, then don't. Do it over 12 months. It's okay. It's not so bad. One of the nice things is that if you do it right away, as fast as possible, let's say you make a wonderfully large amount of money, $200,000, and your employer allows you to put 100% of your paycheck in to the 401k, you might fill it out in 2 months. If you can do that, I recommend that, because most calendar years, the stock market goes up. Something like 85% of years, the market is up. Will it be up this year? No idea. Will it be up if you start it now to the end of this year? No idea. I'm playing the odds. The odds say that 15% of the time, you might lose more money because you put it all in at the beginning of the year. 85% of the time, hopefully I said 15% of the time you might lose money. 85% of the time, you're going to make more money by putting the money in faster, as fast as possible. Back when I had an employer, not just my company, although I do it now with my solo 401k as soon as I can. January 3rd, January 5th, January 6th, whatever is permissible in your situation, get the money in there as fast as possible. If the average market return is 10%, you'll make more if the money is there in early January or late February than you would if you drag it out through the entire year. The concept of dollar cost averaging, when markets are going up, dollar cost averaging generally creates a lower return. It will reduce the volatility of your portfolio because you're adding more shares when it's low and fewer shares when it's high. So it's not a horrible thing. But again, if you're 15 years or more from retirement, you definitely want to take the risk on, take the risk on and get the money in there. One of the caveats, I must warn you, you must check with this, and it may be difficult to check, but you're worth it. Your money's worth it. You got to check this. If your company has no match, then skip this part. But if your company provides a match of some kind, you must get all of the free money. You need to know how that game is being played. What are the rules? As an example, if the employer says they will put in up to 3%, if you put in 3%, and let's say you make $100,000, you put in 3%, they give you 3%, you are now saving 6%. You must collect the free money. There is a possibility that if you front load your 401k for the year, or whatever your plan is, that the employer will only match that 3% on each and every individual paycheck that you are contributing to the program. So if you completely max out your 401k by the end of February, and the next 10 months you are not adding any money, your employer will match 3% of your salary if you put that much in on that paycheck or that month. And since you put in nothing because you already filled it back in February, they might not make a match for you. So you'll lose that money. So I don't know. You could possibly, in some scenarios, if the match is small enough, calculate that your total return for the year, the total average expected return might be greater than the money that they're giving you. However, most people can't fill out the 401k in a month or two. Most people, even if they're doing it aggressively, are 5 or 6 or 8 months instead of 12. But if you're losing some of the free money, give serious consideration to going back to 12-month program where you max out your 401k on the last paycheck in December so that you get all of the money from your employer. In some cases, like I've had jobs in the past where there was no company match, not relevant. Very small company match, still may not be worth it. But if they're matching 3 or 6 or 8 or 10% of what you put in, you better make sure you understand that if you're going to miss out on any of that money by making the 401k get full faster. All right. More than I wanted to go over today for the intro, but it's important. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to go into investing skeptically segments, and then we're going to hear all about the Bible from our new friend later in the show. Today's Investing Skeptically segment is about 401ks and accounts like that, like a 403b or even a TSP if you work for the U.S. government or some other government agency. All of these are what are called qualified plans, which means they're qualified for special tax treatment. And one of the things that people ask all the time, and it's come up multiple times in the last few weeks, so it makes a great show topic, is should I roll over that money from my former employer into an IRA? Easy answer for me, yes. Yes, and you should do it probably quickly. At least that's my preference. There may be absolutely no problem to leave the money there, but there might be problems if you leave the money there. And I wanted to go over a couple of the possibilities just to make sure that you're aware. First of all, if you roll over to an IRA, you are likely going to have many more choices, probably better choices, and definitely lower cost options if you look for them or if you go to one of the companies that have a lot of index funds. If you leave the money behind, you might have fewer choices. The costs might be higher. So just some other things to think about. Your employer could also switch to a new 401k provider, and you could end up with better or worse choices. And the problem I have is it's outside of your control. And there might even be a 30 or 60-day blackout period where you can't change anything. And they'll take all the funds that you've previously selected, and what they do is map them. That's the phrase that I think is most commonly used. So if you have a S&P 500 fund, they map it to the new S&P 500 fund. But the new S&P 500 fund might have, instead of a 0.2% expense ratio, it might have a 0.5% expense ratio, because maybe the new 401k provider also provides investment help, investment advice, maybe even to all of the employees. Well, you're not even an employee anymore, but you still pay the higher cost structure on the funds that they're mapped to. You also are subject to the possibility that they switch your money from one fund to another fund that's similar, but not exactly what you wanted. Again, probably not anything catastrophic, but why give up that control? Why give up another part of your expenses or your profits to somebody that does a less sufficiently good job? One thing that happens sometimes, is, especially with small companies, is they switch to a new 401k provider that saves money for the company. Companies have expenses involved with providing a 401k to their employees. A company may wish to reduce or eliminate that cost, and some 401k providers will cover all of those costs for the employer. The employer can save thousands to tens of thousands of dollars, which is pretty sexy for them. As you can imagine, that money doesn't come out of thin air. It has to come from somewhere. It comes from you. and all of your coworkers and former coworkers in the form of fees, higher expense ratios, and other fun things. If your employer has financial trouble or is bought, you may again experience trouble getting the funds out. So it's just something to be aware of. If your former employer also had a profit sharing that included stock purchases or stock grants that went to you in some way, you may have a generous portion of your 401k or pension plan in the company stock, which may be too big. Definitely my rule of thumb is you should never have more than 5% of your money in one individual stock. 10% if you really think you know what you're doing. But sometimes over time you end up getting 20, 30, 40, 50% in the stock of your company or former employer. And if they have problems, not only could you lose your job if you still work there, but you could lose a generous part of your portfolio. So you want to reduce that risk factor as much as you can. And it may not be able to be done within the current 401k from your old employer. I've also had people where the custodian decides that they don't want to deal with you anymore. Or they lose your information because maybe when you got a new job, you moved to another city. Maybe you didn't tell them. Maybe they're not making the effort to find you. But then it can make it a little harder to get your money out later. Also, sometimes the custodian will, I don't know, I guess they sell, because they're not going to do this for free, but they outsource the management of your account to a third party. And this is something I deal with fairly regularly, a couple times a year with new clients, where a company holds your 401k, and it may be in investments, or it may just be sitting there in cash. Because when the 401k goes, when the money from the 401k goes to this third-party company, it doesn't go in the investments that you have because they aren't the custodian of those funds, right? They don't have that kind of level of control. So it goes to them and they might map it to some new funds, or they might just put it as a big pile of cash. And you find out 8 years later, while the market's gone up 100 and something percent, that your money just sat there as cash and did nothing. That's kind of a good outcome because sometimes not only does your money sit in cash, but you're paying a monthly fee, a quarterly fee, a paper statement fee, a transaction fee, a breathing air fee. I don't know. You can have some big fees. And so that can eat away at your portfolio while it's sitting in cash. So not only are you paying all these fees and expenses, you missed all of the opportunity. So it's one thing, particularly when I talk to people that are starting or don't have a large portfolio, sometimes I'll tell them that I've had people lose 6-figure accounts. I've never had anyone lose a 7-figure account, but accounts with multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars have gone missing. Don't let that be you. So one of the ways to do that is every time you leave an employer, roll that money over into an IRA. If you already have an IRA, it's probably a good idea to add it to there. But of course, it might be a time for you to look to make sure that your current IRA is doing as well as it could be doing. Make sure that you have an efficient and satisfactory performance wherever your IRA is currently at. So you don't want to lose track of all your money. That's a really bad thing. You don't want a third party to hold your cash while charging you fees because that sucks. All of it legal, of course. And then there's a possibility of an extremely bad situation that I'm going to go over here. And I give this as a very unlikely thing to happen, but I know that it can because it did. A client of mine who had a 401k with his company, the employer, the owner of the company, a single person owned the company, it was a smaller company, decided to switch the 401k custodian from one company to another company. And it can be very hard for smaller companies because there's expenses in running a 401k. I don't think they're that high, but they do exist. Well, they switched to a new company, and the new company used only load funds. Not something I've gone over much lately. Maybe I'll have to recover that topic. But basically, every dollar that goes in, you might lose 3 or 5 or legally no more than 8.5%. So when they mapped all of the current investments into the new funds, all of the new funds had front-end loads of 5%. And so if you had $100,000 in your 401k, when it moved over to the new custodian, you now have $95,000 invested. So in one swift moment, you lose 5% of your entire 401k portfolio. Now, this happened to somebody that still worked at the job. So it wasn't caused by them not rolling it over because they still worked there. And we together researched best we could. We didn't go and get attorneys involved because, again, in this case, maybe it's $5,000. It can cost a whole lot more with attorneys to do an investigation or a lawsuit. But at that time, I couldn't find any legal justification to say that what they did was illegal. They just switched custodians. And it just happened to be that the new custodian had funds that all had 5% expense ratios. So all of their money came from the old custodian to the new custodian, was mapped into new funds, and their portfolio went down by 5% in that day or two. It also turned out, we found out later, that all the employees, of course, did this, and the salesperson or the representative that was in charge of this account probably made several hundreds of thousands of dollars in a couple of days, then quit their job at the new custodian. And we also found out that that person happened to be like a brother-in-law of the owner of the company. So the whole thing stank just from beginning to end. And it was a huge disservice and cost to all of the employees. And one person who's a related member to the owner of the company made hundreds of thousands of dollars. And to the best of my understanding, I am not a legal professional. Everyone lost 5% of their portfolio. So weird shit like this can happen. Also, many, many years ago, I used to work at Montgomery Ward in the corporate complex downtown Chicago. And when I left, I moved my money, pretty reasonably quickly after I left that job. But I knew some people, some former coworkers that stayed behind, and then Montgomery Ward went bankrupt, and things happened, and you get paid for a while, and then some big company takes over and runs Montgomery Ward's until it finally ends and collapses, and everything's done, and the bills are all paid. And then these former employers decided, hey, maybe now's a good time to move my 401k. Well, normally to move a 401k, the first thing you want to do is go talk to someone in your HR department from your former employer and find out what form or documents you need to move the money. Well, the company not only went bankrupt, but it's gone. So who do you talk to? So they had to find out who the custodian of Montgomery Ward was, who was in charge of that, find them, find out who is holding the money for you. It's probably safe in your name. It might not be making any money because they might have spun that off again to one of these third-party companies. But a couple of these employees spent 3 to 6 months of work to try to figure out who to even talk to before they got their money. To my knowledge, they all did get their money. But again, the idea that for 6 months, I may not know where my money is or how to manage it or what it's invested in or what expenses I'm paying, completely unacceptable to me. So these kinds of things can happen. I don't mean this to be a giant scare thing. Some terrible things can happen. You might be able to leave it and be just perfectly fine. Make sure if you move, they know how to reach you. If it's a 401k or any account in your name, like a Roth IRA, standard brokerage account, just a reminder, you should be getting a statement every calendar quarter. That's required by law. I now have a brand new situation, which is one of the prompts for this segment, where someone has money at one of these third-party companies, and they say that they only provide documents once a year. I don't know how that's done, what loophole they found in the law, but we're working on moving that money. You could also have Other account types. Often I'll have people come to me and say, I left my employer, I want to move my 401k. What I usually ask for is a copy of their statement. And the reason I do that is because often people don't have a 401k, or they have a 401k and something else. So you can have a 401k and a profit sharing plan. You could have a profit sharing plan and a stock option plan and not actually have a 401k. There's all kinds of different plans, and the rules and the details might actually matter when you want to move it. And again, all of this stuff you don't want to learn about 5 or 10 years after you left your employer and you've moved twice. Even if they know who you are or where you are, you may have to convince them that you're that person because you've moved and they don't have your new address on record. So just a lot of reasons, I think, when you leave an employer, it doesn't have to be that day, but when reasonably possible, expediently, I think it's a really good idea for you to roll over your 401k and or any or all, well, that's a lot of words, retirement plans, qualified plans, into something that's specifically in your control. Better choices, lower costs, more control. You're not going to lose $100,000 and misplace it. You're like, where? I lost $100,000 in my sofa cushions. Where could it be? You want to do everything you can to make sure you know where your money is and what it's invested in. So I'm just going to wrap up that segment on roll over your 401k.
As you get older, you just ditch certain things as you get older, and it's a pleasure to do, right? I mean, for example, right, religion is a very good example. I wouldn't be a very spiritual man, right? I don't believe in God, right? Still Catholic. Because there's nothing you can do when you're Catholic. Once you've started Catholic, frankly, there's no real way to stop being Catholic. Even not believing in God isn't regarded as sufficient reason to get out of the Catholic Church. You'd think it'd be fairly fundamental to the whole thing, but no. Catholicism, the stickiest, most adhesive religion in the world. There's no website you can deregister online. You can't put up your membership card in front of a priest and go, feck ya, I'm out of here, and walk away. You could join the Taliban. You'd merely be regarded as a bad Catholic. I'm presuming a large chunk of you probably were raised Protestant. Give me a cheer if you had any Protestant upbringing at all. A fair few of you, right? Now, when you do the wafer thing, right, and take the hooks or whatever, thing, it represents the body of Christ. It's a metaphor, it's a symbol of the body of Christ. Oh, not when you're Catholic. When you're Catholic, it actually is the body of Christ. You're supposed to actually believe that it turns into the flesh of Christ in your mouth. Nobody fully explained this to me as a child. I would have spotted the flaw relatively quickly in that. I would have gone, hang on, I might be 8, but I've eaten enough burgers, chicken McNuggets, right? Fish fingers and rashers to know there is no animal flesh in the world that jams itself to the roof of your mouth and hoovers all of the moisture out of your body until you're looking at your mother going, can I take it down with my finger? And look at the roof of my mouth. And she's going, do not take it down with your finger. It's the body of Christ. Leave it where it is. They're making a show of me in the church. Desiccating me from the inside out. Desiccated, by the way.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
This Investing Skeptically segment is on how to get started, what to do if I have next to no money. And a very popular thing nowadays are all these phone apps where you can do investing. I don't like them. I don't like them a lot. When I've looked into them, I've always found problems and weaknesses, and maybe there's some that's perfectly fine. But the thing I definitely don't want you to do is allow your portfolio to be gamified. These platforms, like any broker used to do in the olden days, is make money when you buy and sell and trade. I don't want you doing that. That's part of my basic philosophy. So it probably doesn't surprise you that I don't like the apps that gamify your portfolio. It's not a game. And honestly, if you don't have a lot of money, it's not that fucking complicated either. But I do get people who say, hey, Phil, I have $100 or $1,000 or $5,000. What should I do? And it's an excellent question. And the answer is pretty easy. And I've gone over it before, but I get new listeners all the time. So I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes going over some basics. So at Fidelity, as an example, they have pretty good, really good index funds for the total stock market, maybe the S&P 500. And they might even have a global one now. I'd have to double check, but you can go double check. But if not, just use the total stock market fund at Fidelity. The nice thing about that, that's one place that I know you can start with no money at all. Well, almost everywhere you can open an account with no money. Okay, but open an account with $0, that's nice, but that doesn't help you. But being able to invest. But Fidelity does have a couple of funds, and I'm pretty sure it's a marketing idea, just like when milk is on sale, but it's in the back of the grocery store. They want you to walk all the way through the store and all the way back because you're going to pick up some other things. Same kind of thing with Fidelity. These funds are meant to bring in new clients that in a few years, hopefully, will have more money. And a few more years after that, we'll have even more money. And they'll become used to having their money at Fidelity, and Fidelity gets new long-term clients that way. Absolutely fantastic. Take advantage of it if that's what you want to do. If you open up an account at Vanguard, you can't buy anything for $100 or $500 or $800, $900. Once you get to $1,000, you can use Vanguard's target date maturity funds. I've talked about them before, and it's a tricky thing, so I want to try to be clear. Often there are better things that you can do with your investments than using a target date fund. It does not mean I hate them. I think there's better ways often to invest. However, if you want to get an account at Vanguard, which I would recommend, but you only have $1,000, then getting a target date fund is your best option at this time. The problem is not that the target date fund is suboptimal, in my opinion. The problem is that you have $1,000. So this solves the $1,000 problem, and you can get a target date fund. If you are in your 20s, pick a target date fund 40 years out from now. Say target date 2040. 2040, that should do, or even 2050, 2055. It's not going to matter a whole lot because hopefully the most significant factor in your portfolio when you're starting is adding new money. And quite frankly, whether the expense ratio is 1 or 2 or 3%, while 3% is clearly way more than 1%, hopefully in a few months you add another $1,000. And again, that money that you're adding is way more important than the details of where it's invested. I'm not suggesting that you go crazy and go buy GameStop stock or AMC or anything like that. I'm still pushing for a broadly diversified portfolio. If you do have some extra money, then you have more choices no matter where your account is. And all of these big companies, the names that you know, Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, T. Rowe Price, E-Trade, all of them, you can go set up an account online if that's what you want to do. They might even have an app where you can look at your account, or you can use your web browser on your phone to look at your account. You can link your bank. You can send over money once a week, once a month. You can send $5. You can send $800. All the things that you can do with an app like Betterment, you probably can do at Fidelity or Schwab. It's just not going to be as cool looking. Their app's not going to be as fancy. So, you got to choose. What's your goal? What's your goal? To have a fancy app on your phone, or to have a reasonably good to high quality portfolio that's going to make you the most money in the long run? So again, with no money or $50 or $100, Fidelity has a couple of really good index funds. If you have $1,000 or you want to build up to $1,000, you can open up at Vanguard and start using their target date funds. And once you've added $3,000 at Vanguard as an example, you can buy then the total stock market at Vanguard. So that way you're not in the target date fund, which might have 5 or 10% bonds if you pick one that it has a target date way out in the future. So you can eliminate the bonds because, in my opinion, if you're 15 or more years from retirement, you don't need any bonds, generally speaking. If you're a little more conservative and you want 5 or 10%, fine, but understand that it's probably going to hurt your long-term performance. Of course, if the market drops significantly right after you get started, it might help or provide a smaller loss than if you had no bonds. But again, even in this, it's the money that you're adding that's more important. So if you put in $1,000 and lose 50%, and you go to $500, next time you add $1,000, your portfolio is now bigger than where it started from anyway. So it's that adding money, adding as much as you can, as quick as you can, all on a regular basis. When you get to $20,000, again, at Vanguard, you might switch from the total stock market to, or instead of having just the total stock market, that is, you might have the total international stock market. You can add that on top and start adding money to that. When you get over 50,000, the next break or two that I'd like to have is about 25 to 30% in international, 5 to 10% in a REIT fund, a real estate fund, if it is a very low cost option. If the provider you're using for whatever reason doesn't have a good REIT fund, you can skip that for now. And this is for people over $50,000. But pull out 25 or 30% and put it in a total international index. And then the rest is still all in stocks. And you might want to have something like half in the S&P 500, the really big companies, and then half in the extended market. So we're not going through 12 or 15 or 18 or 20 different funds like Phil might do for somebody that has $2 million. We're talking about getting started. Getting started with a total stock market index. And then later you can add a total international index. And then when you get over 50, and you know what, if you delay and don't do this till you get over 100, probably not that big of a deal. The little bit of enhancements that I do with large portfolios, they're small amounts of improvement. And I like that, and I think it pays for itself and it pays for the effort. But when your account is really small, the benefit that you're getting might not be worth the time for you to be that involved with it. And again, you can still do that if you want to spend the time on that, and that's fine. But the really big driver is having and adding more money. So just this quick little segment on some things you can do if you don't really have much money. Just a reminder, in case I wasn't clear earlier on, almost anywhere you can go and open an account with no money. You don't have to write a check that day. You can open an account, link it to your bank, and start making automatic deposits. The real challenge comes into when you want to buy something from within that account. There might be minimums for the things that you want to buy. So hopefully that helps some people on how to get started. If you don't have a lot of money, some ideas for you. The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Your investments should be based on your situation, and you should consult with your financial advisor before taking any action. The show may contain ads. These ads are placed into the show by the hosting company after I finish recording and editing. I have little control over the content of the ads, and you should not assume that I support their products or claims. If you choose to support the show via the new Patreon page, that support does not create an advisor-client relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, today, as promised, we're going to talk a little bit about what the Bible says. The author of the book, The Bible Says What? And also a very entertaining and fun YouTube channel and podcast. I am honored to have with me today Michael Wiseman. How are you today, sir?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on, Phil.
Oh, it is my pleasure. Unfortunately, I listened to the last 2 episodes of your show. And God damn it, it reminds me of how cray-cray so many people are and how they try to justify it. Yeah. So why don't you tell the listeners who now don't know and are interested about your show, what's the general theme? And then for laughs, I'd like to talk about the most two recent ones.
Well, the show is it's a conversation that I have with religious leaders from around the world, podcasters, pastors, authors, and I essentially just challenge them on their beliefs using their own book. I grew up Christian and you know, kind of knew a lot of this stuff until I actually picked up the Bible and read it. And then when I read it, I was totally confused on how anybody could actually read this entire thing and still think that it's, well, number one, true, and number two, that this God is loving and competent. So, and that's where these conversations essentially came from, is my questioning and my wanting to know how in the world can these leaders still believe, and if they have the answers. And well, as it turns out, they don't.
And you grew up in a religion?
Yes, I grew up Christian. Both my parents were, you know, ordained ministers. They taught their classes.
Christian, that's pretty vague, dude. What the fuck does that mean, Christian?
True. Holy roller evangelical, man.
Like, that would have been
laying on of hands.
That would have been my guess, because only evangelicals claim, without even knowing that they're claiming it, that they are the Christians. So when you say,
right,
I grew up Christian, well, no shit, Sherlock. You're in the United States. That's like 99%. Well, okay, 81%. So obviously you weren't Catholic, because Catholic's not really Christian. So you're not Mormon, because that's weird. Scientology, no, that's fucked up too. So evangelical, was it non-denominational with some mega church founder kind of thing?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it wasn't really a mega church. It's more of a small town, you know, not very many people type thing. It was a very small church.
Okay.
But it was very, very, very passionate.
So they were just kind of, were they aligned with the Southern Baptist Convention, or are they just out there on their own?
Out there on their own, doing their own thing.
Wow, that's where the real money is.
Right, exactly. Yeah. They don't have a religion; they have a relationship type thing.
Oh, Jesus! Oh, wait, shit. But that's the funky stuff, and cool. So you were down with that, and you read the Bible and left religion when?
Well, it was a slower process. I think the fear of hell was like the last thing to go.
Yeah,
it was such a powerful thing that was pounded into me as a kid, you know, and I was just, the indoctrination sticks with you for a while. But it really was when I was older. I had a friend just kind of start talking about religion in a negative sense, and I was like, well, that's weird. I've never heard that kind of thing before. And then I started looking into it, and I was like, well, there's a lot of people that say this kind of thing. And then, you know, YouTube and debates between other Christians and other podcasts and everything that really just helped push me through that. And then I started reading it, and once you read it, man, so many problems just present themselves when you're doing this.
Yeah,
I started writing it down, and I started taking notes. There was notepads, notebooks all over the place.
Man, that's how you get fucked up. That's
it.
I call the Bible the atheist maker,
and
for
good reason.
Yeah. It's not the only way out, but it's a very high frequency way out. Because some people, and of course, as evidenced by the people that you have on your show, they didn't actually read it, or they read it with an open heart and a closed mind. I don't know, how does one read that book and get through to the end and not go, this is fucking worse than Harry Potter? I mean, it's less believable. So I was going to talk about this older show 2 weeks ago, I guess, a second, but now I can't help myself. Paul Burns, you talked to Paul Burns.
Yeah.
Okay, before I give my commentary, does he have a church? Is he a name? Do people know who this guy is? Because I had no fucking clue who he is.
No, this was a regular churchgoer. Every once in a while, I'll have somebody email me a bunch of times, and it's like, fine, I don't want to keep going back and forth with emailing, because that's a pain in the butt. Let's just talk this out, and I'll have that as part of the show. And he was just one of the regular churchgoers that I had on. He was very adamant about being on and having that conversation, so I did. And
apparently you didn't think it was a chance coincidence that your fate was cast because you had emails back and forth? I mean,
yeah. Well, I actually did it twice with Paul. I actually had two conversations. The one that's aired that a couple weeks ago was the first conversation, and it was very difficult to get through. The second time, I didn't make it all the way through. It was one of the first conversations that I actually ended early. I don't do that. But
yeah,
it was just a very frustrating conversation, and when people don't listen to you, it's just like, I got kids, man. If I wanted somebody not to listen to me, I'd just go talk to my kids.
It was very clear that Mr. Burns was a condescending prick, and I don't even. He's
at times
so condescending that he doesn't even know that he's condescending.
Yeah.
The things that he would say, like, I have all the evidence on my side. There's eyewitnesses and the science and blah, 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 blah. And all you want to do, Michael, is kill babies.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah.
What the hell?
Oh, man. The second conversation gets even more far out there, man. He starts talking about duck rape and how is that bad? Like necrophilia with ducks. And I'm like, what does this even have to do with atheism, man? And it's the problem that a lot of Christians have is understanding what atheism is. It's merely that lack of belief. It doesn't come with anything else.
Yeah.
And to them, it comes with a whole worldview of things and decisions and ideas. And it's like, no, man, it's off on your television. That's it. I'm not going to change it to any station that has a God. I'm just going to leave it off until I see proof of this.
And the thing is that, I understood what you were saying, but he couldn't understand what you were saying. He wouldn't allow himself to understand what you're saying because he already knows all about Jesus. They're like, they're bros, and he knows what you're doing and what your heart is, and you've decided to separate yourself from God, so that's why you're going to hell. And don't come crying to me, bitch, because you're the one that turned down the offer of everlasting life to be with Jesus Christ. He's not punishing you. You're just separating yourself, so it's your fault. Fuck you.
Right.
Just the attitude, the way he talked to you, and he was trying to, and I've heard people do this before, but where it was almost logical, but with him it wasn't even close, where he'd be like, well, why would you not murder children? Because you're an atheist, and that's what atheists do, because they're free to think for themselves, and they can just go kill babies. And he kept going over it so many times. I was like, Paul, do you actually want to kill babies? Is that why you keep bringing this up? Because I think it's pretty straightforward that most people don't want to kill babies. Christian, right. Muslim, Buddhist, atheist. I think that's that's pretty safe area to tread, but not for Paul.
No.
Oh my.
Hey, the reason seems to just go right out the window.
Well, the other thing that he seemed to have, which made me worry or wonder if he was an apologist, because his responses, he only had a handful of responses, and he'd keep saying them. It was like his mantra. Yeah. That he had to keep repeating these nonsensical phrases over and over and over, no matter what you said, to stay safe in the corner where he couldn't be hurt from you, in a boxing ring or something, mental boxing ring. And he would just keep saying things like, well, we have all the facts. What I believe is totally rational, and you're the irrational one. And you're like, yeah, that's cool, dude. But I brought up the subject of X. Well, we have all the answers, and we're the rational ones. And I was like, oh my God, he is so wound up with a couple of ideas and a couple of phrases. There's nothing else there.
Yeah, they don't want to push back from that. It's a safe place for them. They don't want to, be woken from their dream state, essentially, from their faith-filled fantasy world.
What do they call it? Is it the Stockholm syndrome, where
that's it.
Someone gets kidnapped, and I think this guy somehow either he's been abused by Jesus or somebody else, or he got dropped on his head, and he loves his captor, and he can't say anything negative about him because he's been broken. He's broken man.
It's sad. It's really it makes you sad. It makes you feel bad. I mean, the Stockholm syndrome is such a perfect example. There's so many that I talk to, and it's just like that fits so well as that Stockholm syndrome, and they just can't break free from it. They can't see it, and I don't know, how do you fix that? No matter how many facts you throw at them, no matter how many logical reasons you come up with, it's just they just can't see it.
Yeah, he also had the other throwaway line was that, well, I guess I just can't help you, Michael. I don't know what to tell you because it's so obvious. And you're like, okay, well, give me some evidence. I already did. No, Paul, you didn't. Yeah, I did. I told you about all the personal testimonies or the eyewitnesses. And you, like I do occasionally, and other people have done on different shows, they keep saying, okay, well, give me one. Just don't tell me there's 20 eyewitnesses. Give me the name of one eyewitness, and then we'll look at what they wrote down contemporaneously at the time of the events. Oh, that's right. There is none.
None. Not one. Why doesn't that make them stop and think and go, wait a minute, that's weird. Why isn't there any? Like, how long did it take after Jesus died to write these stories?
Yeah.
That's interesting. That doesn't make a lot of sense. No, then instead they just keep pushing forward, and that faith-filled wall just stops all the logic from getting through.
And I've encountered it many times. I once at a hotel where we had an atheist convention was sitting at the bar, and a regular patron, not like Patreon, which, by the way, you have a page. And where is that? That's patreon.com
/BSW the podcast.
BSW the podcast. And that's for Bible Says What?
Yeah. Best place is thebiblesayswhat.com. That's where all my stuff's at.
And so I was talking to this young lady, a patron of the bar. That's how we got off on the subject. Mm-hmm. And she was a Christian, and we were talking back and forth about different things. And she's like, yeah, I don't think Jesus was real. And I was like, what? I mean, like, rebooting, processing. Yeah. Isn't that like a really kind of important part of the whole Christianity thing? And she's like, no, I don't think so. Like, okay, cool. Yo. You don't think there was really a Jesus and he didn't die for your sins? And
well,
and I heard you've got a couple little sound bites at the beginning of the podcast which cracked me up when someone said, and I don't know, must have been an earlier show, when someone said, God doesn't kill little kids. Yeah. And your response was what? What was it you told me?
Our response was, what do you think the Passover was?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. But there's just the firstborn. They're not really kids. They're kind of adults because they're first. And I don't know, how does someone not see that, or how does someone not see the what is the guy who was going to stab his kid because an angel told him to?
Abraham.
Oh yeah, Abraham, the founder of all three true religions.
Yeah.
Abraham
the
and Isaac.
Man who cut off part of his own penis and then tried to kill his kid.
Yeah.
Let's trust him.
One of my favorites is, my God, I just haven't had enough caffeine today. Was it Jephthah? Who had the daughter that he was going to sacrifice on a funeral pyre, alive, going to roast her alive because he won a battle.
Yep. He promised to God that he would sacrifice what comes out the door first to meet him or something like that.
Yeah.
And just, what did he think was going to happen? Was it going to be a goat, a chicken?
Yeah.
No, it's going to be your fucking kids, man. Those are going to be the things that run out to you that most excited to see you. Of course. He must not have liked his daughter very much.
I have a PowerPoint presentation that I do called Bible 101, where I go over a bunch of really sick and demented and fucked up psychotic stories from the Bible. And that's one of my favorites in that book. And I also borrow, oh my God, I've forgotten the author's name, from the Lego Bible. Are you familiar with that?
The Lego Bible?
Yeah.
No, never heard of that.
Oh my
awesome.
God, dude, you're missing out. Hang on. Now that I've mentioned it, I feel compelled to have the name right. Lego Bible. Brandon Powell Smith.
Writing that down.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And let's see, is there... Yeah, they're listed under Brandon Powell Smith. The brick Bible. So it's Legos and Bible. It's the brick Bible. And there's the brick Bible.
Oh, those little skets with the little Lego people that do different things in the Bible?
Yeah. The stories are actually completely told out in Legos, and it's not skimpy. I mean, this thing is deep, and it's actually amazing.
I have seen that. I do love that.
And now there's a video.
Good job.
I've got to check that out. I don't know what that's all about. But I've read those and had those. But sometimes I'll take screenshots from the webpage of the Brick Bible and put it in PowerPoint presentations. And there's a nice photograph of Lot talking. Not Lot. God, that's another awful story. Jephthah talking to his daughter. Horrible. Yeah, Jephthah talking to his daughter. And she's like, well, can I at least have a day or two to go hang out with my friends in the woods because I'm a virgin and bewail my virginity?
would have mourned my virginity. Yep.
And one of the comical screenshots is then she's in the woods with her friends, and one of her friends says, "Oh, so you're gonna die a virgin? I wish there was something I could do to help you with that." It's like comic genius on top of the
So
Lego.
clever.
Yeah, but there's that Lot. Do you ever bring up the story of Lot?
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially when you're, when I talk to female pastors, there's certain things I like to hit on, and Lot's story is definitely one of them. With the, Lot is seen as a righteous man.
Yeah,
in the Bible.
the only one in a whole fucking city, a major metropolis.
Right. And then the first thing he does when trouble starts happening is he offers his daughters up to be raped by an entire town. But not just that, but he sweetens the deal and says, "Hey, by the way, they're virgins.
Yeah.
Never been touched. Try some of this fresh meat I've got for you." How is that a loving, righteous father right off the bat? And it's just monstrous.
And I'm also trying to think, was there any society in that time frame at all where a man would have done that willingly? To be like, oh, don't break the aluminum siding on my house. Don't throw pebbles into my windows. I give up. Here's my babies. Fuck them all you want. I know there's like 500 of you and just 2 of them, but I think they've got the spirit. Here's a webcam, by the way. But
Jesus.
It's just a story, and like you said, this is the one and only righteous guy in all of the twin cities of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Mm-hmm.
Where the word sodomy comes from, by the way. It's just, wow, what a nice guy. And then, of course, you know what happens next?
Later on, once his wife has become salt, he's,
Right.
he's available again.
The only way to escape the relationship, she had to turn herself into salt.
That's it.
And
look over there, honey. Look at that.
Yeah. And what did the daughters do?
Got him drunk, and one by one got impregnated by him.
Yeah. And it's because
I think the people that spawned off of this incestuous act were actually enemies of Israel, so that the story was kind of made to make them look bad. But in the end, or in the beginning part, that's where all the people came from anyways, was incest. You got Noah, you got Adam and Eve. I mean, so I don't understand that part.
I guess back then there was only like 20 people, so they got to fuck somebody.
I guess it didn't matter, huh?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
You don't want your right hand to become jealous of your left. It's just
right.
And then what's the guy way back, really early in Genesis? Is it Onan?
Onan?
The seed spiller?
Oh yeah, what's his name? Oh my goodness. Yeah, I can't remember his name, but yeah, he did not fare very well after doing that.
No, and he was doing the righteous thing.
Right. God didn't see that way at the end. That's for sure. It's just so many different things.
Onan.
Was it?
Yeah.
Onan, yeah. There's just so many different things that Yahweh finds detestable that are just odd and strange. You go back to the Old Testament laws themselves, and you tell me that picking up sticks is equal to being stoned to death, or equivalent to being stoned to death. Wow, that doesn't make any sense. Why would God do something that ridiculous? Is he that petty? I mean, holy cow, man. And
well, I mean, it's not like he ever sent 2 she-bears to rip apart 42 kids or anything.
God, that's, the excuses I hear for that verse
tell me,
are just ridiculous. And my favorite one is, oh, well, Yahweh didn't do it. He was called by the prophet, it was Isaiah, not Isaiah, oh my goodness.
Go up thou Elijah, yes.
Good grief. He was called down by Elijah to do it. Like, what do you mean? So because Elijah read this thing that Yahweh now has to obey, Yahweh doesn't have his own free will here at this point? It's like nothing they say works. Nothing. You can't make that right.
Yeah, and
no
of course,
way.
God, obviously, we have Elijah and you. God can't cure baldness. So, I mean, what are you going to do?
Damn him. That's why I hate him so much.
Yeah, it's just a cornucopia of insanity, and then of course they dropped the pearl. That's the Old Testament.
Yes. Let's focus on Jesus. Well, guess what? I've got a plethora of Jesus questions for you then, because holy cow, Jesus is not this perfect guy either.
What are some of the Jesus questions you might ask people to try to answer?
Well, right off the bat, Jesus says he does not come to bring peace, but division and bring a sword. And how is that the Prince of Peace if he's telling you right off the bat he is not the Prince of Peace? I mean, holy cow. And then he's going to come back with his angel army and slaughter me and all my atheist friends because we don't believe, because Yahweh didn't prove himself to us. How is this guy?
I love the part where it's like, well, if you don't have enough money for a sword, what are you supposed to do then? Do you remember?
No, what was it?
Sell all of your clothes.
That's what it was.
And buy a sword.
Give up everything. Yeah.
And of course,
poverty.
Yeah, and family values. Oh my God.
Ugh.
What I wish I could remember the locations, because this is in part of my talk, is that you have to leave behind your mother and your sister and your father, and I'm here to turn father against son and mother against daughter, and it's like, well, that's really clear. This guy is a psychopath.
It's clearly.
And then the idea that the New Testament is better. I'm like, no, that's from the New Testament, you guys. That's Jesus talking. That's inside the quotes.
Right.
So
that's in red letter, man.
Yeah, you're not even, because they always say, well, you're taking that literally. Yeah, that's what that means when it has red text or in quotes. It's actually literally what Jesus said in English 3,000 years ago.
Right.
That's the
definitely
Bible.
in English. Yeah, Jesus wrote the Bible. That's how it works.
One of my favorites, especially if someone's really studied, especially if they're a apologist, and they're like, well, you really need to understand Aramaic and Latin and ancient Greek, and you have to understand how that was twisted and interpreted, and what these words, this is really the word for love, not murder. Whatever they say. And I was like, my response then is like, okay, wait, so I have to study 2,000, 3,000-year-old languages to have a chance to interpret what my God is telling me. Don't you think that's kind of messed up?
Well, then it tells you that Yahweh is not the author of confusion.
Yeah.
Well, I'm confused, man, and so are half my guests. So I mean, how does that work? I mean,
yeah. The other one here. Let's see. What is her name? And I don't.
Marty.
I mean this. Yeah, Marty. And it's funny because before the show, I warned every guest, including you, that we're not going to punch down. But your show, you're not attacking these people. Okay, I am attacking these people. They're just allowed to speak. And this one, the person was talking about how to stay in shape and stay healthy with faith, and the Bible telling you what to eat, and the Bible telling you to exercise. And I love that. If I recall this correctly, you just say, can you give me the passage in the Bible that says we should exercise? And she's like, oh, there's lots of them. And you're like, cool, just give me one. And there was nothing.
Yeah.
Just this silence, like, I'm sure they're there. Really? Where exactly do you have in mind? Because I haven't found it.
Jumping jacks for Jesus. That's where it says, somewhere in there. I swear it.
Is that what it is? Jumping jacks for Jesus? Yeah. Oh,
No.
In the Bible. Yeah, and you've got to start a fundraiser so you can, because God can create the entire universe, but just can't make money.
Just can't. That dude always needs money.
Always
like
needs
George
money.
Carlin says.
Yeah.
He's always needing money. It must be bad with finances.
Yep. If anyone hadn't heard that, look up George Carlin. Funny fucking man talking about the Bible.
Funny man. Don't agree with 100% of the man, but he did say some pretty funny things.
He did, and his take on religion is pretty entertaining. So you've got the book, and the book is called The Bible Says What?
Yes.
And it's at all good booksellers and Amazon.
I got that. That's nice.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It's one of those love-hate things, because I adore the idea that someone's going to run up in little brown pants and drop off my stuff that I didn't have to leave the house to go get. But I also think we're now at a point where Amazon needs to be busted up. But that's a whole different podcast.
That's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah. So what's next? Do you have some real fun guests that we should look forward to?
Well, Monday I'm going to talk to one of the guys from what's that? Oh my goodness, mind blank here.
That's
Rascal Flats.
Okay, the musical attempted groups?
Musical country band thing. I'm gonna talk to one of those guys. So that's like my biggest one coming up soon. My next episode coming up on Sunday is with a podcaster from Vietnam named Elmo. So that's interesting. It's interesting to hear his take on things, especially from where he's from too. It's a little.
And is Elmo a Christian?
He is, yeah.
And is Elmo not afraid of Elmo?
No. So Elmo apparently does not like the real Elmo. So I guess I don't know. I never got to the bottom of that either. I wanted to.
I don't know if I can. I used to. Let's see if I can do this. Elmo not afraid of Elmo. I don't know. I used to be able to do Elmo. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Way better. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. You should only talk to him in that voice. Yeah. This is your chance.
I do a lot of little voices here and there. I don't even realize I'm doing them, and someone would be like, "Oh, that sounds like Kermit." I'm like, "Oh, was that Kermit? Oh man, I should probably practice that so I can get better at it."
Yeah, I used to. I don't really practice them like I used to. I used to do Kermit also, and I did a pretty mean Howard Cosell.
Oh.
Are you old enough to know Howard Cosell?
No, I don't know who that is, but
he was a sports commentator, and it's like, "Good day, this is Howard Cosell." See, it's awful. That's awful. No.
Well, that's fun. That's fun.
It's like
I used to do Stitch.
Stitch, yeah.
And that means family. Family, you know.
Yeah.
Kids love it.
Kids love it if they know who they are. My characters are now too old, but what are you going to do? And the podcast, of course, is available on any good podcast feeder, any good podcast program. Where is that primarily? Where's the original host? Is that hosted on your website, or do you have a platform you're on?
I go to it's through like Podbean or something.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking it was
hosting
Podbean.
Network, but everything honestly is at my website, thebiblesayswhat.com. I mean, you got the book, the podcast, the video part, which is my YouTube channel, clothing line called I Am Firebrand. We do a lot of little atheist T-shirts and stuff. Sunday School Dropout, stickers and whatnot. Religion is Toxic. Bible Says What shirts, you can get those there. All that kind of fun stuff.
I Am Firebrand. I'm looking at this right now. That's your store, I guess, right?
Yeah. I mean, the wife's still putting it together. It's ever evolving webpage, I call it.
Yeah, I need a store. I don't have a store. I don't know. It just looks like work.
It is a lot of work. That's for sure. And we make all the shirts here and the stickers and everything. I got all the machineries and stuff, designs and whatnot. That little Firebrand guy, I've been drawing that guy since I was in high school. I had no idea what I was going to do with him until the show came around. I'm like, aha, T-shirts.
Wow. I drew a line once. Oh, not that kind of line, listeners. No, I mean like in a circle. That's not.
That's an interesting way to do your cocaine.
Yeah, that's not what I had in mind. Now I'm looking at the YouTube channel, and it looks like the YouTubes might be a more newer thing.
Yes. I've been kind of hesitant to put my face out there. I still haven't 100% come out to the family yet, so that kind of plays a thing into it. And plus, I'm not real big on. Man, it took me forever to get the podcast going. Like, I don't like the sound of my own voice. I don't like listening to myself. So I have a real issue with putting myself out there, and this is the evolution of it right now.
Well, that's funny because people have often accused me of really liking to talk, and I finally figured out there is one thing I like better than talking, and that is hearing the sound of my own voice. So I don't have to be talking. I can just be listening to something I recorded earlier. So, that's where it really boils down to, is that Phil gets to hear his own voice.
As long as Phil hears his own voice.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And people are like, that's a funny joke. And I go, is it? Is it really? But yeah, it's a very entertaining show. Everybody should check it out. The Bible Says What. What have we not covered that your listeners need to know, or your new listeners will need to know about you?
Oh man, I think we've covered it all. The book, the shop, the shows. I'm just gonna keep going. Lots of guests lined up. Lots of topics. I can't stop writing, so I mean, there's always going to be something from me out there. So.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for spending some time with me and talking to the listeners on the Phil Ferguson Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Those worlds in space are as countless as all the grains of sand on all the beaches of the Earth. Each of those worlds is as real as ours. In every one of them, there's a succession of incidents, events, occurrences, which influence its future. Countless worlds, numberless moments, an immensity of space and time. And our small planet, at this moment, here we face a critical branch point in history. What we do with our world right now will propagate down through the centuries and powerfully affect the destiny of our descendants. It is well within our power to destroy our civilization and perhaps our species as well. If we capitulate to superstition or greed or stupidity, we can plunge our world into a darkness deeper than the time between the collapse of classical civilization and the Italian Renaissance. But we are also capable of using our compassion and our intelligence, our technology and our wealth to make an abundant and meaningful life for every inhabitant of this planet, to enhance enormously our understanding of the universe and to carry us to the stars.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
I'm so glad you're still around. I appreciate you listening. A couple things you can do for me if you'd like to help out. You can go to Apple Podcast or Stitcher and leave a 5-star review for the podcast. I would greatly appreciate that. If you have the means to do so, you can become a supporter at patreon.com/Phil. Couldn't get much easier than that. Just /Phil at patreon.com and kick in a couple dollars for every episode if you have the means to do so. It's just a way to say to me, Phil, I listen to your show. I appreciate it. I like what you do. It provides value in my life, and it can be because of the investment stuff, or it can be because of the other things, the guest speakers that I have on. Of course, if you know somebody that would like to come on and be interviewed, let me know, especially if there's someone you can connect me to. So you can share that information with me or make suggestions on speakers. On speakers for interviewees for the show. If it's somebody that's like super mega famous and you have no idea how to reach them and they probably don't answer emails anyway, please don't send me them as a suggestion. I probably thought of them already and I don't know how to get a hold of them. So if you've seen a book about investing or a book about atheism or just a totally different book that you think is pretty cool and you know this person or you know how I can get in contact to them, please send them as a show topic idea. Of course, it can be wildly other different diverse topics. If I find it interesting, I might have something totally different on from time to time. I also had a couple of people that were nice enough to send me an email letting me know that they went and bought some I-bonds. I think that was the last show or two. So check that out if you missed it. It's a way to have something very conservative in your portfolio. The problem is that an advisor, someone like me, or a mutual fund company, they can't help you. You have to go directly buy them from the government, but they do have an inflation protection feature. So go back and listen to that episode or do some research. Just an idea. If you haven't heard the previous content, I-bonds from the U.S. government, I think you're generally limited to buying only $10,000 worth. But if you've got money that you need in a year or two and you don't know what else to do with it, might be a reasonable place to put a little bit of money. Now I'm going to kind of go off topic. And one of the things I love to talk about, electricity, electric cars and or other things like that, solar panels. Wife and I took a trip from the far southwest Chicago suburbs up to lower central Wisconsin, went and visited a friend, and we drove up through the Chicago suburbs on the west side of the Chicago suburbs and found a nice high-speed charger right before we left and went into the rural areas and topped off the electric car. Wasn't sure I needed the charge, but I wanted to check out the station and give a report on PlugShare, which, by the way, if you don't know that, if you have an electric car or you're considering one, look at plugshare.com or get the app. and it lists every and all type of charging locations where you can find charging towers, charging plugs to plug in your car. So we did a little bit there. And then we went up into Wisconsin. We had a scheduled stop at a small town that had a really nice coffee shop. And we decided we would help that support that local business in a small town. And it also was nice that they had free chargers. Now, in this case, they had what are called Tesla destination chargers. These fit in the category of level 2, so a medium speed charger, not particularly fast. And I had previously bought what's called an adapter. The brand was Tesla Tap, but there's other companies that make that so that you can take a level 2 Tesla charger, put in your connector, and then plug it into your car, even if it's not a Tesla, and charge your car off the level 2 destination charger, which is owned by the small business. It's not owned by Tesla. And, you know, we stopped in and had a nice coffee, had a couple of sandwiches, panini. We had a couple panini. And then we walked around and checked out the town and some stores that were there. Just a very nice little visit. And in an hour, my car from one of those chargers can add about 25 miles. We only charged for an hour and then moved to another location. We could have easily stayed there for 2 hours. It's not something you want to do if you're on a long road trip, but we had time and we had this scheduled to eat and kind of just chill in this little town and check it out. So we got free electricity. Went and visited a friend, and at the end of the night drove over towards Madison, Wisconsin, and we actually went past Madison, Wisconsin. And because of the 2 charging stops that we had already done, we drove by 4 or 5 other high-speed chargers and got to our hotel, which had, again, destination charger from Tesla and a non-Tesla charger, level 2 charger. We figured we'd just charge up there overnight and be 100% full in the morning. Well, this is where we found a problem. We found a problem because the chargers were already full when we got there. And it was late enough at night that these people probably were not going to come out in the next hour or 2 and move their car and let me charge. So we're going to have to go to bed pretty soon. And again, I checked on PlugShare, and 5 miles away was a high-speed charger. So my wife and I hopped in the car, and we drove to this high-speed charger, charged for 35 minutes. Didn't make the car full, and we weren't even really that close to empty. I think we had like 25 or 30% battery left. But after charging for about half an hour, you know, we were over half, 60%. That's fine. Took it back to the hotel. The chargers were still full. We went to bed. Got up early in the morning before we left the hotel. I plugged it in for another hour or so of charging. And then when we went and had lunch, we found a restaurant that also had a level 2 charger. And so while we were eating lunch for an hour, we added more free electricity to the car. So far, only the first stop for a few minutes and then the second stop outside of Madison, Wisconsin for half an hour, most of the electricity we got was free. This will probably change in the future because I don't think hotels really want to be in the business of providing electricity. But for now, a lot of them do, and that's pretty cool. On the way back, we did stop at one high-speed charger for about 10-15 minutes just to make sure we had enough distance to get home, because I can actually go from New Lenox, Illinois to Madison if I have really good weather on a charge one way. So, you know, we didn't go that far. The other thing that I'm doing with electricity is, you may know as a regular listener that in my area you can get what they call hourly billing. The rate for your electricity actually changes every 5 minutes. And most of the time it's actually cheaper. But there's certain times during the day, if people are up and doing a lot of work before the normal 8 o'clock work shift, or when they come home after 5 o'clock, the electric demand can be a little higher and the prices are higher. So you try to avoid doing anything electric intensive, like if you have an electric oven, electric stove, microwaves, doing your dryer, if your dryer is electricity, you want to avoid it then. But in the summer, of course, the big time to avoid using electricity is when it's freaking hot out. Well, that's when you might most want to use electricity to run your air conditioner, only when it's the hottest part of the day to nip that in the bud. But the difference in price here for me at night, it can be around 6 cents or less per kilowatt hour. But in the afternoon, 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon, 5 in the afternoon, when all the houses are hot and all the businesses are running the air conditioning, all the houses are running air conditioning, the electricity will no longer be 5 or 6 cents per kilowatt hour. It might be 20, 25, or 30 cents per kilowatt hour. A very big difference indeed. So the trick that I use is a couple of things. One, you run the air conditioner at night at a lower temperature, which may or may not be what you want to do, but I turned it down even more. So when it gets to be 8 or 9 in the morning and the air conditioner is basically turned off because of the thermostat has those controls, the house is already cool. The walls are cool, the furniture's cool, the floors are cool, everything's cool. And so with just a fan, you can go a long way and not run the air conditioner. Another thing that a lot of people don't do that I do is I run a dehumidifier most of the year round in the basement to make sure it's dry down there so you don't get mold and stuff in the corners. But I'll run it more time in the summer, but I run it at night again when the electricity is cheap. Sometimes though at 1 or 2 or 3 in the afternoon with the sun beating down and it's super hot outside, my house can get too warm and I'm tempted to run the air conditioner. Well, my new fun solution, I started trying this last year and I'm doing it again and it works really well. Not for everybody. First of all, you have to have a basement or some low space where you can move air from. In our case, we have a basement. And so we leave the basement door open and of course we air condition the basement, which normal common sense says close all those vents and don't push cold air down there because you're not going to be in that environment depending on your basement. But we also air condition the basement overnight. And I have an 8-inch, I believe it's called an inline fan. I think it's designed for like greenhouses or growing rooms in your house. It's an 8-inch fan. It looks like a small little barrel. And then on one end, I hook a 15-foot bit of flexible tubing that goes up the stairs to the main floor of the house. And so when it gets to the point where it's just starting to get a little too hot, I turn that system on and the main floor of the house can cool off 3 to 4 degrees in 30 to 40 minutes. And that is fantastic. And I'll leave that on until the electric rates drop sufficiently. Of course, since the air conditioner is not running and the house fan is not running, it does get warmer on our second floor, but we're not up there. Everything is on our first floor except for the bedroom. So at night, of course, before we go to bed, I want to make sure the air conditioner is running again. And we have bigger normal fans to push cold air up the stairs to the second floor. So just something fun to do. One of my friends calculated there's a possibility that I might save $100 to $200 over a summer season with this little trick. The fan was like $60-$70 and the flexible hosing, I don't know, it's probably $15 or something for that. Just a way to be more efficient with the energy. And maybe it's more work than it's worth for you. It probably is more work than it's worth for me, but I enjoy it. I've made it into a game. But that wraps up our show today. This is 385. We are still in June of 2021. And again, you can go leave 5-star reviews. You can go become a patron at patreon.com/Phil. Check all that out. And of course, if you have wonderful ideas for a show topic or someone I should interview, you can email me, phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com. I do hope to see you out on the road somewhere soon at a conference, maybe this year. Until then, ciao.